Hello there and welcome to World News Program streaming to you live on All 24 News. I'm your host, Karim Zachary, and up next are the top stories. Algeria's president set September 7th for early presidential elections, with voter list review starting next Wednesday and candidate forms available on Saturday. In Nusayrat, over 200 martyrs and hundreds wounded in a Zionist invasion, while dozens perish in bombings across the Strip. That's next. Also coming up, Palestine demands a Security Council session on Nusayrat massacre, blaming Biden administration. Resistance sees it as part of occupation's forceful agenda and rejects insecure agreements. Also ahead, Palestinian Health Ministry urgently requests generators for hospitals. UNRWA warns of cholera outbreak due to water scarcity and shutdown of desalination plants. Stay tuned for the details shortly. Hello again and welcome to the program. First off in our topical news, Algeria's President Abdelmadjid Tebboune has called for early presidential elections on September 7th. According to a statement from the presidency, President Abdelmadjid Tebboune signed a decree in accordance with the Constitution and a March 10th, 2021 order related in the electoral system. The decree also initiates an exceptional review of electoral lists starting next Wednesday and ending on June 27th. Meanwhile, Algeria's National Independent Election Authority has initiated the withdrawal process for presidential candidate signature subscription forms. The authority announced that candidates can sign or can begin withdrawing forms from its headquarters in Western Algiers starting Saturday. Additionally, individuals can book appointments to withdraw their signature forms through the authority's online platform. And in other news, Algeria secured a seat on the United Nations Economic and Social Council for a 3-year term spanning from January 1st, 2025, to December 31st, 2027. The election held during the UN General Assembly session in New York saw 185 out of 190 participating countries voting in favor of Algeria's membership. This marks Algeria's 8th term as a member of this key UN body. Coming up after the break, we'll delve into the latest development in the occupied Palestinian territory. Stay tuned for the updates. First in this file, on Saturday, a devastating onslaught by the occupation forces in Gaza's Nusayrat camp claimed the lives of 210 Palestinians, mostly children and women, with 400 others wounded. The aggressive shelling conducted by land, sea and air inflicted unprecedented damage extending to the vicinity of Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah, as well as the camps of Al-Maghazi, Al-Zawaida and Al-Burayj. Efforts to rescue the wounded from this massacre continue amidst the ongoing crisis. And on Saturday, intense Zionist shelling hit central Gaza Strip camps, causing numerous Palestinian casualties. Al-Maghazi and Nusayrat, Al-Burayj camps were heavily targeted in the unprecedented aggression. Here's Osama Ayadi with the report.
Zionist forces launched a new wave of attacks on the central region of Gaza Strip using different types of artillery and ammunition. Ground, air, and sea attacks left more than 400 Palestinians dead during the first hours of this assault. Palestinians in Deir Bala fell victim to several rounds of bombardment, and dozens of others were taken to Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital amid several orders to evacuate one of the few healthcare facilities remaining in the whole strip.
We
were in Nusayrat camp. Special forces arrived from an Apache, and there was a white car with special forces. The Apache started to bomb and fire directly at people. There is a large number of martyrs and injured people.
A few miles away from Deir Bala, al-Maghazi camp was subjected to intense air and artillery bombardment, resulting in the death of 5 civilians in an initial toll and the ignition of a number of houses on fire.
We were at the market. People were normally at the market preparing for Eid al-Adha happily. Despite the war, we are happy with Eid. We were buying vegetables for lunch. I was with my friend. We saw more than 20 planes over our heads, 4 helicopters, 2 over Salahuddin and 2 over the sea. We were surprised by the scene. Towers were razed to the ground.
The insane Zionist bombing also focused on Al-Bureij, Nusayrat, and other cities and camps in the central region, leaving a number of Palestinians martyred and injured. Ambulance teams were unable to reach them as a result of the intensification of the aggression.
We are in difficult conditions in this hospital because of the lack of the medicines and fuel. The aggressive attack continues on the central governorate by the enemy's army that targets citizens, and the number of wounded and martyrs increases, and they are arriving in big numbers to the hospital.
The Zionist intense shelling and repeated attacks on the central Gaza Strip reveals the inability of the occupation to make more gains in the northern and southern parts. Soldiers of the occupation have also failed many times to defeat the heroic resistance from Al-Qassam brigades. The situation also unveils that the Zionist leadership have acquiesced to the international pressure following its attacks on Rafah. However, the Palestinian people are bearing the brunt of an insane war of genocide in every corner of the Gaza Strip.
Zionist airstrikes near Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Deir al-Balah on Saturday left casualties. The hospital, serving over 1 million Palestinians, faces severe shortages of medicine, supplies, and fuel, compounded by a shutdown of its main generator. Medical resources are stretched, with the ambulance system unable to meet demand for transporting the wounded. And in the last 24 hours, Zionist forces unleashed 5 more massacres in Gaza, resulting in the deaths of 70 Palestinians and injuries to 150 others. The Gaza Ministry of Health reported the overall death toll from ongoing Zionist aggression since October 7th has reached 36,800 martyrs, with 83,680 injuries. In response to the massacre in the Nusayrat camp, Palestine has called for an emergency UN Security Council session. President Mahmoud Abbas has reached out to Arab and international parties to convene this session, seeking UN intervention to halt ongoing Zionist aggression. The Palestinian presidency strongly condemned the recent massacre in the Nusayrat camp, branding it as part of the relentless Zionist campaign of extermination against Palestinians. Official spokesperson Nabil Abu Rudaini reiterated his stance, underscoring the gravity of the situation on Saturday evening. Abu Rudaini also pointedly held the U.S. administration accountable for the Zionist occupation's massacres, urging intervention by the Security Council.
The series of daily blood massacres against our people, the latest of which occurred today in the Nusayrat camp, resulting in the martyrdom of dozens of citizens and the injury of hundreds, is a continuation of the genocide that the Palestinian people are facing. We hold the U.S. administration fully responsible for the massacres committed by the Israeli occupation forces. We demand an immediate halt to this war, which will destroy everything and push the situation to a dangerous phase that will not bring security or peace to anyone.
The Gaza Strip's government media office rejected the occupation's claims regarding the Nusayrat massacre, which claimed the lives of 40, including 14 children. Director Ismail Thawabti stated that the occupation's allegations aims to deceive public opinion, labeling the announced victim list as forged and incorrect. Thawabti confirmed the deaths of 14 children, 2 of whom remain unidentified due to their severe condition.
جيش الاحتلال الإسرائيلي ينشر معلومات زائفة.
The Zionist occupation's army is misinforming the public opinion by publishing names whom they alleged they had killed in a Nusayrat camp. Amongst those names there are people who are alive and others who are out of the country and other ones who were martyred in different dates and places.
The media office director renewed the call for international action to halt the occupation's massacres and prosecute those responsible for the Palestinian extermination, including Zionist and American war criminals.
ندين ارتكاب الاحتلال الإسرائيلي للمجازر ضد مراكز نزوح وإيواء الآمنين.
We condemn the massacres committed by the Zionist army in centers and camps consecrated to the civilians, and we confirm that this is part of a genocide, as we condemn the American unconditional support for the Israeli occupation, which is carrying out organized crimes against our people. The Zionist entity and the U.S. administration assume the entire responsibility for these continued crimes against humanity and against the human rights agreements. We call on all the countries of the world to condemn these massacres and condemn this genocide and the ethnic cleansing against civilians and our Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip. We call on the international community and all the UN organizations to pressure the Israeli occupation to stop this crime of genocide against civilians and children and women, as we call on the international community and all the international courts to sue the Israeli and American war criminals who persist on carrying out this genocide with planification and determination.
To the resistance now. Abu Ubaidi of the Qassam brigades confirmed Zionist forces killed prisoners in Nusayrat, warning of danger to others and condemning it as a war crime. For his part, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh criticized international inaction amid escalating massacres in Nusayrat and Deir al-Balah and UN's classification of the occupation as child killers. He stressed Hamas's rejection of agreements not ensuring Palestinian security and called for global resistance against Gaza massacres.
The Zionist enemy's operation in the area of Nusayrat in central Gaza Strip is a compound war crime, with its first victims being its captives. The enemy managed to release some of its captives through committing appalling massacres, yet simultaneously killed some of them during the operation. This operation poses a significant threat to the enemy's captives and will have a negative impact on their conditions and lives.
The Palestinian Ministry of Health issued an urgent plea on Saturday to the international community and relief organizations, urging them to provide generators for hospitals in Gaza. They warned that hospitals, health centers, and medicine warehouses are at risk of shutting down due to deliberate destruction by the occupation and the blockage of necessary spare parts for maintenance. This threatens the lives of patients and the injured and could lead to the collapse of health service in Gaza. For its part, UNRWA warns of a cholera epidemic in Gaza due to water scarcity and halted desalination plants amid the ongoing Zionist aggression. Salman Asib reports.
Displaced Palestinians in Jabalia camp continue to struggle with water scarcity. Meanwhile, UNRWA has warned of a possible cholera outbreak due to a lack of clean water and high temperatures in the Gaza Strip, which has been under genocidal Zionist aggression for 8 months.
There's no water and there is no food. Our children died of thirst. We do not wash. There's dirt on our bodies. We do not enter the bathrooms. We do not have anything to survive. We have nothing. No water, no electricity, nothing. There is no water at all to drink. For 6 hours I've been searching for a little water, even from wastewater to drink, but I cannot find it. We're close to death from a lack of water. Have mercy.
Inside the destroyed UNRWA schools, Families line up for hours under the sun in front of water barrels, waiting to fill up their buckets and containers. According to UNICEF, most water supply systems in the Gaza Strip are heavily destroyed due to the Zionist airstrikes, and the limited aid entering the Strip makes it more challenging to obtain.
It is a real problem. We're waiting for one of the donors to cross the road so that he can take pity on us and bring us water. We have no water. There are no wells. There is nothing. There is a disaster, and a natural and big disaster. Life is by water. There is no life without water.
The United Nations alerted about the risk of diseases, including cholera, due to the lack of clean drinking water, and poor sanitation, especially in the north, have become a matter of life or death.
The necessities of life are zero and below zero. The classrooms are completely burned. Our clothes are black. We have become like beggars. There are no necessities of life, and there is nothing. And as for food and drink, non-existent or most non-existent. And aid is difficult to reach us. Crossings are closed. Everything is closed. There is no aid. As for water, the wells are all destroyed. There are no working wells.
A catastrophic water shortage in Jabalia camp in the northern Gaza Strip, and the suffering of the displaced with the difficulty of obtaining drinkable water reflect the persistence of the Zionist occupation in imposing new forms of genocide against the Palestinians.
And finally, in this file, thousands across European cities rallied in solidarity with Palestinians on Saturday, demanding an immediate halt to massacres and ongoing aggression in Gaza. In Oslo, demonstrators urged an end to the extermination war, humanitarian aid access, and an end to the siege. London protesters condemned the occupation forces' genocide, calling for civilian protection. Also, massive demonstrations in Berlin, Stuttgart, and Milan denounced civilian targeting.
And at the end of the day, a ceasefire would only be a temporary measure, because this displacement, this apartheid that the Israeli state is continuously putting on the Palestinian people is still going to take place, even if a ceasefire lasts a few months.
To other topical news now, Lebanese Hezbollah declared on Saturday that it had used a drone to target a group of Zionist soldiers at a newly established artillery site in the occupied Shab'a farms near the Lebanese border. The party's statement highlighted an air attack with a drone on the new Zionist position aiming to disrupt the occupation forces' operations. The strike, according to the statement, hit its target with precision. In a different development, during a Beirut media symposium titled Forum Western Sahara to Palestine, the genocide continues. Mustafa Mohammed Lamin al-Kattab, representing the Polisario Front in the Middle East, highlighted the shared struggles of Sahrawi and Palestinian people against Moroccan and Zionist occupations. He emphasized similarities across military, political, cultural, and humanitarian aspects. Al-Kattab reaffirmed Polisario's efforts for Sahrawi unity and linked their settlement to Moroccan respect for the UN-approved plan. Lebanese writer Leila Badi urged support for the Sahrawi cause, recalling historical solidarity efforts.
Like the apartheid wall in Palestine, in Western Sahara there is a wall of humiliation and shame that divides the land of Western Sahara into two halves, 2,700 kilometers long and surrounded by over 5 million landmines. Just as the movement in Palestine is composed of heroes confronting Zionism, In Western Sahara, dozens of civilians are held in Moroccan regime prisons, women, men and children, who have not yet reached the age of majority.
To another development in Algeria now. Algeria's Finance Minister Aziz Fayed aims to bolster the customs service to tackle cross-border crime. Speaking at a meeting in Algiers, Fayed emphasized the importance of strictly enforcing laws governing international movement of people, goods and capital, while also safeguarding the economy.
جهاز الجمارك الجزائرية.
The Algerian Customs Administration is a vital department within the Ministry of Finance. It plays crucial roles including overseeing the financing of the public treasury through tax resources and revenues from the dispute settlements. This key agency is relied upon by the state to formulate and implement the country's economic and trade policies based on the foreign trade statistics that its services regularly compile. This focus has positioned it at the core of the President's interests, particularly through its involvement in the digitization project aimed at improving the governance of the economic sector, facilitating trade exchanges and securing their data. Additionally, it enhances the effectiveness of methods to combat fraud and smuggling in all its forms.
بقمع الغش والتهريب بشتى أشكاله.
Still with Algeria-related news, the Algerian maritime transport company Qanat is set to resume trips between Algeria and Mauritania starting from June 26th. This follows Algeria's earlier announcement in February 2022 of opening the first maritime line connecting Algeria, Mauritania and Senegal. The line links the port of Jinjan in Jijo on the eastern coast to Nouakchott and Dakar, aiming to boost trade exchanges between the countries. To another African development, as the crisis in Sudan escalates, 300 civilians were killed in clashes in El Fasher. And according to the International Organization for Migration, over 10 million were internally displaced. Sofian Kenturi now reports.
The number of internally displaced people in Sudan could surpass a staggering 10 million, the International Organization for Migration warned on Thursday. According to their latest data, 9.9 million individuals have been uprooted across all 18 states of Sudan, with a significant portion, 2.8 million, displaced prior to the outbreak of the current conflict in April 2023, and a staggering 7.1 million since then.
Some 12 million have been forced to flee their homes in Sudan, with over 2 million crossing borders into neighboring countries, mainly Chad, South Sudan, and Egypt, often arriving in extremely vulnerable conditions and highly traumatized.
The situation is particularly dire in North Darfur State, where the southern hospital in Al Fasher town, the sole functioning medical facility, finds itself on the brink of closure after entering 3 bombings this week alone.
The health system in Sudan is collapsing. About 65% of the Sudanese population lack access to healthcare. Healthcare in Sudan typically relied heavily on Khartoum, where the healthcare system was decimated. Only about 25% of the medical supplies needed are available in the country. In hard-to-reach areas, only 20 to 30% of health facilities remain functional, and even so at a minimal level.
Despite the overwhelming scale and urgency of the humanitarian needs in Sudan, only a fraction, 19%, of the required funds have been delivered thus far. This critical shortfall in aid underscores the pressing need for unifying a national effort to address the crisis comprehensively and prevent the looming specter of famine from engulfing the country.
And finally, let's catch up on more stories making headlines around the globe with Islam Said now.
A Ukrainian attack killed 28 people and injured dozens in Russian-controlled areas in Kherson and Luhansk. According to Russian-installed officials in these areas, Ukrainian forces used both French and U.S. munitions. The Russian Ministry of Defense, for its part, stated that Ukraine deliberately launched 5 U.S. missiles at Luhansk, intercepting 4, while 1 hit 2 buildings. The European Commission is probing an Emirati company's acquisition of assets in 4 European countries. UAE telecom firm EANS is acquiring assets from the Czech PPF group in Bulgaria, Hungary, Serbia and Slovakia. Concerns about unfair state subsidies are being investigated, with an announcement expected on Monday, as reported by the Financial Times. Public opposition to normalization between the Moroccan regime and the Zionist entity has grown, according to a survey by the independent research network, Arab Barometer. The results indicate that anti-normalization protests have become more and more intense, signaling stronger demand for its cessation. The Palestinian Football Association has launched an initiative to revive sports and football activities after the halt since the start of the Zionist genocidal war against Gaza. This initiative aims to alleviate the psychological pressure on children due to the violence and aggression they witness daily.
Well, we reached the end of our program. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take care.